Hey y'all, what's up? This is Chris from Blackstone Cherry, and you're watching the Helix Hour with Eric Broadbent.
Hey, this is Vernon Reed from Living Color, and you're watching the Helix Hour.
Hey guys, my name is Gemma Jura. I'm the guitar player for Evanescence, and you're watching the Helix Hour.
Welcome to the Helix Hour, brought to you in part by Stewart Travel Guitars. See the incredible stowaway travel guitar at stewartguitars.com. Microphones for the Helix Hour are provided by Rode Microphones. Now, let's talk some Helix. Hey everyone, a happy Sunday to you all. Welcome to the Helix Hour. We are live, and joining us today, a person who needs no introduction, and a person who has talked so much today, he's probably not going to want to talk too much, but Line 6 artist and a guitarist that everyone pretty much on this planet knows, guitarist Pete Thorn. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. What's happening?
Not too much. It's been a long time since you and I have chatted.
Yeah, man. Nice to see you again.
Thanks
for having me.
Oh, a pleasure as always, and a big thank you to you and your awesome fans for jumping over here today as well too. So we're going to be talking something. I know you touched. I watched a little bit of your stream today, as I told you, because we bumped our show to work it out for each other. I was doing some things for the better half outside. When I come back in to get a quick bite, I was listening to some of your stream as well. So a couple of things I caught was, some of the dual amps discussion, and of course you touch base a little bit on Helix and things like that. So we're going to touch base a lot of that. And we're going to go over and say hi to as many people as we can here in a little bit as well too. But first and foremost, I imagine, when, as a professional touring musician, when this is all, safe to get back out there and do it, I imagine you're itching to get playing again, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, okay, so actually I got off the road the end of February, right before all the lockdowns started happening everywhere. And I had been out, I'd done a clinic tour of Asia that was pretty extensive. Like I was 3-4 weeks over there, and I was in Europe for quite a long time as well, doing a clinic tour. And then I did the Classic Rock Show tour, then called the Classic Rock Show in the UK. And that was 6 or 7 weeks I was over there. So, I mean, from what felt like August until late February, I was traveling a lot with a little bit of breaks for Christmas and stuff. I'd be home a week here and there, a lot of travel. And so when I got home, I was like, man, I'm ready to get home. I'm ready to just get in the studio, do some stuff, and just chill out. Like I didn't want to see my suitcase. I remember just putting it in the closet. I was so tired of living out of a suitcase, to be honest. And be careful what you wish for, because look what happened. Like within 2 weeks, it was like, whoa, like everything's changing. The world's changing. So I wasn't in that position like a lot of my friends where it's weird, because it's like, generally speaking, people tour a lot in the summer and stuff, and then it winds down around November, December, and there's not as much in January, and everything was like opposite for me last year, which is I'm thankful for. I got a lot in the back half of the year, and then the little first couple months, and then I got home, and now there's no option but to stay home. So it's been it didn't feel like I love working in the studio. I just started thinking about it. It's like a lot different for a lot of people if they go to a job every day, and I have my own place, I live alone, and I come in this room a lot and work. And so for me, I felt like it wasn't this huge adjustment, to be honest. And because I'd been on so much touring and then wanted to come home and stay home for a bit, it was like, well, I'm okay to get in here and actually do this and just make, now it's getting a little weirder as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
As the months go by, you're like, okay, when's this going to change now? Because variety is the spice of life. I don't know. So it'd be good to get back playing again, for sure. Some gigs and stuff.
For sure. And a lot of the creative type are like that as well too. Like I work from home as well too. That's my job. I work from where I'm sitting right now. So it's really not different, but at the same time, it's just the world feels a little different, because you don't get to have your buddies come over for a beer, like we used to do and those kind of things. So there's some adjustments, but yeah, the people that physically went to the 9 to 5 or, 12-hour, 14-hour day work shifts and factories and all that kind of stuff, it's a big adjustment for them for sure.
Yeah, and the folks that mainly tour, like I was talking a little bit on my show earlier, I could use a couple examples. My friend Jurgen plays bass in Government Mule, and he was looking forward to one of his busiest years, and that all changed. And then my friend John Button was literally leaving the day before they announced the lockdown in the UK. I think he was heading out to England to do a pretty extensive tour with The Who, because he plays bass in The Who. So he's a Helix guy as well.
Yeah, we had him on the show.
We did.
Yeah, we talked about you quite a bit as well too. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because both those fellows that you just mentioned did some guest performances on the First Guitar Nerd CD, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're two of my closest friends and two of my closest bass player friends. So I've worked with them both pretty extensively, and it's great to see how their careers have taken off in the past, really like 15 years. That both those guys are just kicking ass and great bass players, both of them.
Yeah, I only know John. I don't know the other fellow, but unfortunately, but John, he's a great guy. He hooked up Junior and I with VIPs for the Who in Toronto. He took us, all around, showed us everything. It was a lot of fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. Cool. That's great to know that you. Okay. Yeah. He. I remember, him sending me some of his Helix presets and stuff as he was getting them ready to go out and do it. 'Cause he was like, "How am I going to make this work? Is it going to work?" And it was pretty cool. Like the whole process. He had a pretty successful experiment with it. I think worked well for him.
Yeah, he did well, and he got a Stomp eventually as well too. He was just finishing up the tour, and then by the time he got back home, he had a Stomp waiting for him. So he was really interested to check that out, as you know too. Some of the videos that you've talked about, able to put that such a small little footprint on a travel rig and still have your, because he doesn't use a lot of blocks. He didn't use a ton, probably a little bit more than what you could do in Stomp, but he was able to condense that for Stomp. So yeah, for people like you guys that are always, trying to get to the next gig, Stomp is a great small little footprint. Or for someone like yourself, we'll talk about this in depth, but having like your PT-15 or whatever you want to bring with you and an HX effects, you got everything and something you can carry in a travel bag.
Yeah, sometimes that's the gig. You got to go to one of the first gigs that I will have back will be a thing in Malta, and I know that's going to be got to figure out what I'm doing as far as a small rig to go do that and stuff. And it's always a concern these days, flying. So, yeah.
Very, very true. Well, one of the things you were talking about earlier on your stream today as well, too, and I was anxious to tell you about this as soon as I heard it in my ears, you're talking about, the dual amp thing. And one of the new presets I'm bringing out right away is running 2 amp stereo, and one of them you actually physically have. You probably have both of them, maybe, but I saw the one. So I'm running the SLO 100 on one side and a JCM 800 on the other, with a slight drive in the front of it. And oh my God, when you put those 2 amps together, so 2 amps together recording all the time, just absolutely beautiful. So I'm really glad to hear you talk about that. Just sweet.
Yeah, it can be a very, like that blended sound can be really cool. Just having the ability to blend 2 amps. It's different. That exact setup that you're talking about right there. Let's see, you said JCM 800 and Soldano, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it was JCM 800 and a dual recto, but that's what they did on the Super Unknown for a lot of the guitar sounds. I know was those cool. 2 amps. And Michael Beinhorn, producer of that record, is a big fan of that. Like he's always running blending amps. And then Bob Rock was talking about that the other day when we were doing the Tone Talk show with him. He's talking about blending the amps and that he's a big fan of that now. And they just where there's deficiencies in one, or maybe not deficiencies, but just a different frequency spectrum or something the other one takes care of, and you get this massive sound. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
and sometimes it might sound funny, but 2 crappy sounding amplifiers, you take, or even one good amp and a crappy amp. The crappy amp on its own is like, oh, that's harsh, and then you stick it in there, and they're like, whoa, what's with that magic?
Yeah, many times a small amp. Like a great trick is actually for a lead boost. My buddy Brian Ray used to do this a lot. He'd bring a little amp and turn it on for just solos and stuff. So like a little Tweed of some sort, maybe even smaller than a Tweed Deluxe, like a little, like the Harvard or whatever. I don't know what he had, but something. And he would probably turn on a drive pedal, but also switch in that other amp for a solo. And just that boxy, mid-rangey or smaller thing, a whole nother amp switched in, it just lifts you up over top of the band. It gives you this great blended sound,
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I remember back working in music retail. I worked at one music store for here in Ontario, Canada, for about 5 years. Worked at the competing one for about another 5 years. And this was back when hard disk recorders, multi-track recorders were starting to come out. Like Boss had like the BR 1100 or something like that, and Yamaha made the AW16. I forget the model numbers, but anyways, recorders, and they all come with demos built onto them, right? And so you could go in, you could isolate the vocals, you could isolate this. And I remember listening to some songs that were, and they're of course probably recorded on a better studio than with just a unit, but you would isolate just a guitar and you're like, oh my God, that sounds like absolute crap. Or the cymbals or the drums just sound like crap. Then you put everything back in the mix. It's like, how could I have thought that sounded like crap 5 minutes ago? It sounds like magic. So they all have a certain spot, right?
Yeah. I mean, filling up a mix, especially, it's like, slotting into that mix is the key. And sometimes a small guitar sounder, nasally guitar sound or whatever can be just the thing, to cut through. It's not always. I use the example. I put out a demo the other day of a pedal called the Formula B. I had it here. Where it is? Did I put it on the floor? Anyways, it's called the Formula B Superplexy. It's a really nice pedal that sounds like a JTM 45. And I used it through a bunch of different amps and for the video. And one of the amps that I've got here that I found is a nice addition to my room is a little Princeton. So it's a 10-inch, Princeton reverb, just a run-of-the-mill new one. And I use it quite a bit because it gives a completely different flavor and sound. So there's 3 solos in the track. And one of them's cut using that Germino amp back there, that red one, and with the pedal in front and my Marshall 412. I got an old 78 Marshall 412 with old blackbacks in it, in the other room mic'd. And then the third solo is my PT15 amplifier through that cab with the blackbacks. The middle solo is the Princeton. And you'll hear the difference right away. That nasal kind of, it's not nasal in a bad way. It's just more sounds like this all of a sudden with the, just the guitar sound becomes this compact, more mid-range thing, and it's got a completely unique sound. A lot of people always comment on it. They're like, wow, that sounds great. Like that sounds like, yeah, it's a little amp with a 10-inch speaker, and you record it and stick it in the middle of the track with a bunch of rock drums and bass on it, and it just slots right in the middle. And
it's one of those things where if you took it out, you'd be like, okay, something's missing. What was it? But it's not really stepping on anything to make you force yourself to hear it, right?
Exactly. That's it. I remember in the late 90s playing in a band, pretty big band with another guitar player and keys and stuff. And I had a big 100-watt head and a big cabinet and stuff. And then I got an AC30 style amp. And I came in a rehearsal the next week. It's a Top Hat King Royale, which was a great, sort of boutique back before boutique was boutique, I guess. But this would be 97 or 98. And I brought in that amp, really good sounding amp. And the bass player said, man, he goes, it's like you're louder, but you're not as loud. Because I wasn't stepping on his toes. I got out of his range, and it just had that more, it was a more appropriate amp to use in that situation. So I was still learning, about how to make things, It's like Jimmy Page. I mean, people have known about this, I guess, since the dawn of time. I mean, it's, supposedly early ZZ Top is the brown Fender from the early 60s, a little combo, and the Jimmy Page using Supros and all that kind of stuff, And then you go to see people play live, they got the big Marshalls. Everybody thought, well, that's what they must be using, but not always.
No, that's true. That's true. And we're going to be jumping all over the place with my map of itinerary today. And one of the things I'm going to bring up next here is the fact that a couple of the Line 6 videos I watched you do, I think this was when you did the unboxing of the HX Stomp. And I think you did it right at Line 6. No, actually, that was for Guitar Center. It was a Guitar Center one.
At Line 6, I did film it.
Okay, there you go. So you unboxed that and you did a playthrough, and then you had a bit of a small board with you at the same time, and you were showing some of your drive pedals. And one of the things you did is I forget the name of the drive pedal, but you put the drive on and you said, now we're going to accent it here with the Kinky Boost. And this is a weird thing. I want to get your opinion on this. I'm sure you've tried this. I'm positive you have, but if you haven't, maybe you'll like it. So back when I was running the EVH 5153 amps, you were talking about that earlier today, and we're going to talk about your Eruption video as well, where you played it. But Zodic sent me the EP booster. And I was like, okay, this is a cool pedal. I like it. But where do I put it, right? So I put it on my board first in line. I put it on the board last in line. And then I put it in the loop. And not too many people that I knew put it in the loop. I put it in the loop, volume to 0, and that was it. And it just was that instant on, always on, just warmth. It was amazing because for me, it replaced a BBE Sonic Stomp. And I know they're not even in the same world of pedals, but I liked the BBE Sonic Stomp in the loop of my amps because it gave a nice punch. But it was a noisy pedal. It didn't play nice with my other pedals. So put the EP booster in there. So in Helix or HX Stomp, I take the Kinky Boost and put it immediately after the amplifier, before an IR or before a speaker, if that's your thing. I put the drive to 0, put the boost on. Have you ever tried that? No, I haven't. But it makes sense in a way, depending on the loop in your amplifier. It might be doing a buffering thing or something that you liked, You could find that it might sound different in a different amp, depending on the buffering. But like not all effects loops are created equal, and so you might find that what it's doing is maybe making up for, a deficiency that the amp had or something in the loop where you're just getting it back, because a pedal in a loop that's buffering can be a great thing. Buffer either at the beginning or at the end of the loop can be very helpful sometimes with certain amps, Yeah. What I liked about it is it could make even the world's crappiest impulse response sound like $1 million. It could make a great one sound even better. sometime when you have spare time, just try it and see what you think of it. It's absolutely amazing. It's just like I can't go without it now. Even on my presets where I'm writing something for Stomp or for Pod Go, where you're limited, it's like, okay, I guess I have to sacrifice my Phase 90 to get the kinky boost in there or whatever, right? It's something you have to sacrifice, but I can't sacrifice that. It's the one I always go to. But let's talk about that Eruption video. This goes back to like around 2008 or maybe even earlier, I think. And I mean, this was long before, you could even upload 15 minutes was cap, I think, at the time. So you had to upload your video in 5 pieces. And I'm not sure if you know about this, but I did a video not on you, but you were featured in it. I did the top 3 Eruption covers on planet Earth. Did you ever see that?
I didn't. No, okay. I got to check it out.
Yeah, so you're in good company. So the contestants were another Canadian fellow, very young fellow, Jacob Draps. He's from Montreal, great player, phenomenal. That Zappa fellow, what's his name? I think you know him, Dweezil Zappa. Right. Kidding, of course. And then yourself. And, I love them all. There's certain nuances to everybody's. But I mean, yours, and I mean, I know everyone in the chat's going to agree, one of the very, very best tutorials, not only for accuracy, but the feel. As you know, you're a friend of Eddie Van Halen's yourself, you know that there's accuracy and then there's the feel, and you covered it in spades. So anyways, you won that one. We picked you as a winner in the comments in the chat, in the video, and there's a couple, honorable mentions as well too. Chelsea Constable, she's phenomenal. She's got a really good tutorial and playthrough as well too. I mean, really, really, really good. And I think her lesson is phenomenal. She would break every single piece down into like, okay, part 1. And I think she broke it into about 16 parts. So I recommend that as well. But hats off to you for that one, man. I mean, the best EVH Eruption tutorial on this planet.
Thanks, man. I mean, it was really the thing that helped put my channel and also opened my eyes up to YouTube on the map. I always tell a story in my clinic about when I did that, I was playing with Chris Cornell. Mm-hmm. Incidentally, it's funny story about that video that Ed was actually living up around the corner from me when I filmed that video. And I didn't know that at the time, but I met him years later and I realized that he was living in a house. I could throw a stone and hit it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that close. No kidding. I mean, it was crazy. And when I realized that he was renting this house, I just was like, oh my God, I filmed that whole video while he was there. And I could just think, like, I wonder if it was loud and he'd be like yelling down the hill, like, shut up down there, stop playing my solo. But it was literally that close, crazy. But anyway, this is a small world. It's crazy. But anyway, I filmed it on my little iMac, 2006 iMac on the internal camera. Same thing I'm talking on now, but I should wait, but I really tried hard to get the tone good. And, it's not, the video quality is terrible and stuff, and this, but it is what it is. But I felt like the content was good, and so I was playing with Chris Cornell at the time, and about a year after I put it out, it was spring of 2009. I was on tour and I was in Portugal, in Lisbon, and a guy came walking down the street, walked up to me. I was just out before the gig and stuff, looking around Portugal, and this dude comes up to me and he pokes me in the chest. He goes, "Hey, you taught me how to play Eruption."
Oh, nice.
And that had never happened before. Where something that I made in my little, in my home and, on my crap, my iMac and like that, I could put something out myself without some sort of middleman or company to decide whether or not it was good enough or, sharing whatever with anybody. I just made it myself, put it out on the internet, and somehow it made it halfway around the world to this dude in Portugal. And that blew my mind. And that was the first time where I really realized the power of YouTube. And why it became a bigger focus for me gradually as time went on. That kind of stuff happens all the time now, where you'll see people in hey, I'll watch your show, or I love your demos or that kind of thing, which is awesome. I love it when you meet people and they, they recognize you from. But that was the very first one, and it really had an impact on me. I will say, the other folks you picked, like Dweezil. So last year I did it live with the Classic Rock Show, which they were, they'd known about me partially from maybe that video and others. And they're like, hey, so we want you to do Eruption like in the show. And I was like, oh man, it's one thing to play it sitting down when you get multiple takes and you're sitting there in your studio and you pick the best take. And it's another thing to go out and do it 30 times,
standing up
3 shows. And so there's a video of me doing it on the Classic Rock Show channel now where you can see us. We did Eruption into Jump, actually. They wanted to play Jump afterwards. So there's that video. But it was a real challenge to work it up and play it live. And you'll see the video of me doing it even with the class. It's not as perfect as the one where I'm sitting there, of course, right? Because you get to sit down and.
Yep.
But I felt like it was really good practice to go and work it live. So Dweezil played it live, of course, in his, which you got to give him props because it's like no matter what, it ain't the same as doing it on YouTube when you can get the perfect take and sitting and playing it live in front of people is a whole nother experience, But I guess that's cool because Ed never did it the same way twice.
Never.
When you go out, if there's a little mistake or whatever, you just roll with it and do something different. I mean, it's become this weird kind of. I mean, even with me, it was an obsession to try and get it as perfect as possible, the phrasing, to nail the phrasing, the feel. But he never did that. He never played it the same way twice. So that's more of a thing, like a
accidentals. He had accidentals like in that thing and just left him in there. It's like, okay, it's good. Just leave it.
Yeah, the one ascending lick at the close, in the sort of the second half of the solo before before the tremolo picking, like the stuff that goes on before that. I think he said that there was a mistake in it or something, and it's so cool. It's like whatever. I mean, can you imagine it being any different? It's like it's so implanted in my brain, like every note of that solo.
I know, me too. Like, and especially when you watch, like, I mean, yours is hands down the best. But watch Chelsea's later too, just for this part where you can count the parts, like the segments. So section 1 is only like this little tiny bit, and it really, really helps. But and I know a lot of people have asked you this. A lot of people have said, "Hey, could you do like another HD version in 2020, whatever?" And people have even been asking since 2015, 16, whatever. And it's one of those things where I bet like you'd love to do it. And I know you've grown as a player since then, probably leaps and bounds. But you nailed it so well that even with better technology today and better amps, you may be. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I think maybe that way you did it was picture perfect. Maybe you could do it better today. What are your thoughts on that? Like if you were given the opportunity to redo it again and teach people?
I'd rather just
not
move on.
Yeah,
because I did it, and I remember I put a lot of time into it. I mean, I worked on it for I probably worked on the solo for like a month before I actually filmed the video because I had to get it up to learn every single thing and then realize, like, oh man, this is going to be a lot of work to describe. So I really had to know it inside and out. So it was a long project, but it was a worthwhile project. And I feel like it's charming. Like I still feel like my channel is pretty homebrew. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that it would even look that much better. I mean, I guess it would. I've got lights and stuff now and I've better cameras. But, it's like I've kind of moved on. I mean, the sounding like other people thing and being a sideman, that was all part and parcel of the same thing, and mm-hmm. I made most of my living as a sideman, but learning other people's parts and playing them and stuff. And then when I put out my own record in 2011 and then another one down the road, 2017 or 18, whenever I put out the second one, it's kind of more about that for me now, I think. It's like, I remember Guthrie Govan put out that video where he sounded like 100 different guitar players. He picked like the greatest, and he played like everybody. Mm-hmm. It was a classic YouTube video where you're like, everybody from BB King to Yngwie to like whatever's in that video where he's like trying to cop their styles. And eventually he said, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like that part is past now. Like I'm just going to do me now. Mm-hmm. And maybe I feel like that had an effect on me, actually. I think just hearing him say that, I thought, what, he's right. Like, once you put an album out and stuff, you should just do your own thing. Still draw from it. I'll use an example of last year. I did some playing with Mark Martel, who you might probably know very well. I mean, he's Canadian, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the singer that sounds just amazing, can nail Freddie Mercury. And he's got a thing called the Ultimate Queen Celebration. Well, they needed a guitar player to come out and do some shows. So I went out and did a few where I had to learn like 23 Queen tunes.
Whoa.
And really like had to try and nail the tones and the parts. That was going to school once again for the Brian May thing, trying to get his phrasing on, beautiful solo in, Killer Queen or beautiful solos in, all those tunes, it was just like, and, we would do Death on Two Legs and like, it was so much work. And no rehearsal really either was the other thing. Like I had to go out and just play with these guys. And it was like, man, I went to school for that.
Boot
so that
camp.
was one time when I've deviated from what I just said, where I've had to learn in a sideman capacity, go out and try and nail all these sounds and stuff, and parts especially. His style is so. Brian May's another one. He's very much like Eddie. Mm-hmm. The phrasing is behind and ahead, and he plays like a singer. It's amazing.
That's where a lot of kids, and I shouldn't say kids, anybody that's younger than 30 years old, I call a kid, but at my age, but younger generation, that's where they go wrong with all these players, the Eddies. the Brian Mays, and maybe some Randy Rhoads we'll throw in there, is the phrasing, like in a lot of the, sitting here, we're sitting on the edge of the bed or the couch, whatever, and they're learning this stuff. And take away the leads, get rid of the lead track, take it away and work on the rhythm chops. If you can get some of these stems on YouTube, isolated rhythm guitar, Randy Rhoads, or isolated rhythm guitar, Eddie Van Halen, work on that. Work on Brian with the isolated Brian May, because that's where all that swing and flair comes from. The lead you'll maybe get, but if you can't get that swing and the rhythm chops up front, you might as well just forget it.
Yeah, being able to play great rhythm is, a primary, importance. And that's hard to do now because nobody can get together and everybody's like not even playing in bands and stuff. But it's like any way that you can play with time and with drums. And certainly with Eddie Van Halen, everybody talks about the solos, but I've very rarely heard anybody play the rhythm part to, I don't know, let's take like I'm the One or Beautiful Girls, If you can play the rhythm part to Beautiful Girls, because it's like the swing is so hard and people just stiffen it up and they can't, You got to get that swing.
Yeah.
It's so much swing and attack in the right hand. When people play it all stiff, it doesn't sound anything like it to me. I'm the One.
Oh.
When you slow it down, like that is how, and these attacks, they poke through. And if you slow down most people playing it, it'll sound like, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know that. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because way back when I was doing a lot of the EVH content shows, I had Brian Young on the show. He was David Lee Roth's guitar player for about 2 years. He was in the band at the same time with James Amenzo on bass and Ray Lugier on drums. And they had another guitar player too, and I forget his name, but he just did more rhythm guitar. But anyway, so when Brian first got the gig, he was making some suggestions to Dave. He said, "Look at the set list. Why don't you have I'm the One on there? That's classic, Dave." And Dave's like, "Well, the last guy we had couldn't play it." And really, a guy, I don't know who it was, and no disrespect to that player, because that's a hard song to play. But he's like, he just couldn't play it. And Brian learned it, they put it in the set, and off to the races, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not an easy one to play. It's one of the ones I can play like top to bottom. That's like, I'd have to practice it for a day or something, but I know that tune inside and out. And because it's one of those ones that I worked on so much. As far as the rhythm playing, Hot for Teacher is another one.
Oh, God, yeah.
If you can nail the rhythm part in Hot for Teacher, then, and I'm not talking about the da 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 da. That's not so hard, but it's the da da good da good. I'm slowing it down a little bit. Down da 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 down bow bow bop bop ba da you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
It's in my, and the solo, the it's like all that kind of, it's swing. It's like he's swinging so hard, and Brian May has that too.
Oh, yeah.
The solo to, not Killer Queen, what's that? Why can't I remember the name of the song? Oh God, I can't remember the name of the song right now. I can sing the solo. What's the song I'm thinking of?
I don't know, man. Why don't I know that one?
I can't remember the name. But anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. I'll remember. My memory sucks. Right,
but probably not the reason why Eddie and Brian got along so well. They're just like they're the yin and yang, pretty much.
Yeah, how can you not love Brian May? He's so unique. That's the other thing about all these guys is they were so damn unique. Richie Blackmore, Eddie Van Halen, Brian May. They all had their signature sound and weird way of getting it.
Yngwie
combo.
Yngwie for sure.
Yngwie is another one, for sure. Stacks and coils and an OD 250 and a 72 Marshall with obviously his hands. But
yeah. It's funny though, I think you really focus on something that's very, very important too, and is getting away from some of the things that you like trying to replicate someone's tone, trying to be a Zakk Wylde, trying to be an Eddie Van Halen. And I notice little subtleties when I would do some of my live jams where I would be playing a striped guitar. I'd be playing the signature striped guitar, and I'd play the same song, and someone, you might get a hateful comment, "Oh, you dude, you suck." And then I'd play a guitar that was not even related to a Van Halen guitar, like an Ibanez or a Les Paul or something. Same song. Oh man, that sounds great. And I didn't get any better or worse. It's just because you see stripes and people go like this, right? It's like, and I like being low key.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of one of the reasons I love the stripe thing, but I debate getting anything like that ever. I mean, I've thought about getting that new one that they have.
I know, the Frankie.
This guitar has been my Van Halen guitar. I'm doing anything like that because this is actually hard ash body. I found this on eBay. So it's a hard, you can see the ash.
Nice.
It's northern ash. It's heavy. It's got an old 80s Floyd on it. And it's got, this is the body is one of those, I think it's either K&E or Musicraft. I can't remember which is which. So either K&E neck and Musicraft body or switched. I can't remember which, but it's got the weird route and all that stuff for the, the chiseled route. And so a guy built this, and it's got the Frankie style neck on it. It's just a kit guitar that came parts that this guy put together. And the pickup everybody always asks about in this guitar, it's a Motor City 2nd degree black belt, and I have not changed a thing on the guitar since I got it, other than a setup. He painted it evidently to copy the paint scheme or relicking of Blackie.
Okay.
Blackie. Okay, so it's an Eddie Van Halen guitar that looks like Blackie, and that's the reason. And I love the tortoiseshell guard on it, and it was wasn't cheap, but it wasn't super expensive. It was around $1,000 or $900 or something. I got it for, and this guitar has, if you didn't believe in tone wood before, I mean, it's just something about the sound of the ash, which I don't have another guitar that's this wood, this hard ash. It just sounds like that sound. You can hear it in any of the a lot of the demos that I've done and stuff with that tone. I used it recently on the Steve Vai Jose Amp video.
Oh, cool.
That I did. And you can really, this guitar just has so much friggin' attack and snap in the top end and stuff. So it's my go-to Eddie Van Halen early Eddie Van Halen sounding guitar.
Just looking at it, I can kind of feel that for sure. Yeah, that's a nice instrument, man. I mean, who cares if it's not like a $5,000 guitar? It's got the mojo.
Yeah, it's just got the thing and the right sound for that sound, and it's not the most well-rounded sounding guitar or anything like that, but it's really cool for that one thing. So I'm glad I have it. But yeah,
that's awesome for sure. Well, I love that for sure. That's nice.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned just a second ago as well too. So I know it's been a little while. It's been about 2018 since a new record came out, but that was a big thing for you to put out. I mean, you wanted to do a follow up to Guitar Nerd. And, I'm sure you're quite happy to have that one out for everyone that was requesting new material from you.
Yeah. Guitar Nerd was a big step for me. Like the whole concept with Guitar Nerd, I'll just talk about it for a second.
Yeah, please.
The whole concept with Guitar Nerd was like, I'm going to make the best thing I possibly can with what I have. So the recording gear I had and the little setup of the 112 in the closet, and like whatever I had at the time, mic'd up, I'm going to do the best I can with the stuff I've got and program the drums. I will program the hell out of the drums. I will do just make it sound as good as I possibly can. And actually ended up getting 3 tracks on that one mixed by Bob Clearmountain, which was that was a big help to going a long way towards making it sound as good as possible. But, and then a great mastering engineer, Ross Nyberg. But, so, and putting it out, I put it out with a stupid picture of me on the cover when I was 10 at Sears. Because the whole point of it was being a sideman and auditioning and always trying to put on a show and get the gig and do the best I could. And I was just like, you know what? I just this is me. I'm this kid. The picture on the cover. I'm still this guy. I'm a guitar nerd, and I'm going to make the best record that I possibly can with what I've got. And I don't care if anybody likes it. I'm just going to make the best record for me that I can until I'm as satisfied as I can be with it. Put my heart and soul into it, and then maybe somebody else will like it too. Maybe. If not, that's okay too. And that was the concept. It was like a big, kind of, not like an FU, but sort of like a spiritually cleansing moment where I'm not trying to please anyone else other than myself or put on a show for, I just wanted to make a record I was stoked on.
Right.
And this goofball on the cover is like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. That was sort of the message with the picture on the cover of me at Sears when I'm 10. Like, a lot of people try and put the coolest picture, they'll go to the train tracks and put on the leather jacket.
Yeah. Train tracks. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this was like, I'm going to find the stupidest picture I can of myself and stick it on the cover. And so then it was like cleansing, man. Like, the record came out and it was like it was like, here's me. And it was like, I don't have to pretend to be anybody I'm not anymore. Like, that was maybe that's what I was talking about earlier, about not covering other people so much and just doing my own thing. Mm-hmm. And then 2018, it was definitely, when it came out, it was like, it did really, really well. It was the #1 album on CD Baby for a minute, like for like a couple months, which was great because it was instrumental rock guitar. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is great. Largely thanks to like the folks on the Gear page and the little internet community, YouTube, it was like, it's amazing what you can do now without like a label or anything.
Oh, for
and
sure.
So it went really well. And it was like spiritually great. And I was like, I gotta do this every year, because I'll have 10 albums in 10 years. This will be great. And like, of course, it's 2018 before I put out another one.
Yeah.
So I put out the one in 2018. Eventually, I thought I got to get another record out. And so around 2016, I started compiling, like listening to some of the demos that I'd done for pedals and stuff and mining those for ideas. And, that'd be cool as a full song. That'd be cool as a full song. And even using some of those tracks and building around them. So I did a little bit of that. And then wrote some from scratch too. And then finally got the second record out. And that was also just a, continuation of the same kind of feeling. Like, just a great, and it was hard to finish. Cause I can procrastinate forever, but my friend Dennis got involved. And when the Pledge Music was this thing that went down in flames a while ago.
I heard about it.
That whole story, but we put it out through Pledge and did one of those kind of crowdfunded sort of, releases and stuff like that, which was a big success. But I think I was one of the last people that got away scot-free without Pledge taking their money and the customers' money.
Yeah.
Because that was just a mess for so many people. But so I don't know what it was, the timing or something that worked out. I only had a couple problems with them. Anyway, the partnering with Pledge on it and getting it put out that way put a hard time stamp on, like, it's got to be done by May, whatever, because it's coming out June 3rd. So we got to deliver it by such and such a date. And that kicked my ass. I had half the album done by about February. Mm-hmm. And between February and May, I had to finish it. Wow. The other half. So it was like, I had a year and a half or something to do the first half. And then I had 3 months or whatever to finish the rest. And so that just kicked my ass. And you get work done when that happens, right? Mm-hmm. And it's good. So I focused and got down to work and didn't procrastinate. Well, I did to some degree, but
yeah. But it's almost like that
and
gig.
I got it out.
It's almost like that gig where you have to show up and learn 23 songs or whatever. So I was like, okay, well, you got to do it.
Like, yeah, I learned 23 songs once, and it was 23 or 24, I think, for another gig in 2 days. Oh. And that was like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it.
Sure.
I think. I mean, I was brain dead, like, and I was still reading charts on a few of them and stuff like that, but I did get it done. Like, it's pretty amazing what you can accomplish if you have to.
That's right. Right. That's right.
In any life, I think.
I agree with that 100%. We got a nice comment from Sheldon Fisher in the chat. Says huge fan, and Sheldon, he's a great champion for the Line 6 brand in the community as well too. He does fantastic work. He says huge fan of Pete, the most knowledgeable guitar player that we have. Well said. I agree.
Oh, that's too kind, man. I don't know. I feel like I don't know anything, and then I know a fair amount about a very specific thing.
Yeah, well, that's nothing wrong with that.
And then, like, the rest of it, I'm just a moron with a high school education.
You'd be surprised how many times people will send me comments on YouTube because they think I know everything about Van Halen signal flow and stuff like that. I know a lot, but I'll tell people, here's one thing I always, and this is what's got me through life. I don't want to make shit up. If someone says, what was this used for? I'm like, to be honest, I don't know. I'll ask some of my buddies. I'll see if I can get you an answer. I'll ask the gear companies, whatever. I don't want to ever lie to someone and say, it's because of this. It's a flux capacitor and it does this and does this. I have no freaking clue. I'd rather say that and, have some credibility, right?
Well, and I'm sure you find these shows are great because it brings people together. And what I find is I learn things from folks viewing every week.
Yeah, in the chat.
Somebody will say, oh, yeah, so-and-so was the designer of that pedal or something that I'm showing. I'm like, I didn't know that, you know? And people will tell me things all the time where I'm constantly learning from people. So it's really great having that community. they ask you a question, and then maybe you're motivated to go find the answer, or somebody else I'll say, I have no idea. Like, can somebody in the chat, you guys know? And somebody knows, and they, so it's
That's
like,
right.
It's a great thing.
What I do sometimes, I don't have it today, but sometimes I have a little piece of paper and a pen sitting, because I'll take some notes down, either from the guests like yourself today, or from someone in the chat, and I never want to forget it. And speaking of the chat, Thomas Maynard said a super chat. Thank you so much, Thomas. That's very, very nice of you. And there's a couple other comments coming in. And my beautiful better half, Sandra Lee, here, known as the Party Line in the chat. She's sharing a lot of your social media links throughout the day today in the chat. And she's also funneling me the questions by text if I don't see them. And also, just a reminder, her show is a really fun show with her and Leanne and Mark on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, every morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Is that right? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Kind of just like listening to old couples gossip. And I'm not saying that they're old, but the couples gossiping back in the day. You're old enough to remember in Canada. Do you have a party line? Did you ever have one?
A party line?
Where you and your community, like, I'm not sure how small your town was where you grew up in Canada, but here in my part of Canada, we had, like, you would share the line with like 4 or 5 of your neighbors. So your phone might go ring, ring. Your neighbors might go ring, ring, ring. And you would know you'd ring. So you'd pick it up. And then, so you could actually listen to the, old Aunt Betty down the street, like, gossiping about her corns on her feet or something, right?
Yeah. Get out of here.
I'm not kidding. I guess
I did not have that. I don't remember having that in Edmonton, but that's amazing.
Well, I'm a lot older than you, and I don't want to divulge my age. A lot of people know, but anyway, so that's what it is. So that's the party line. Anyways, L. Scott Music says, the Guitar Nerd cover followed up with a super great music inside, an inspiration to every young dreamer, then followed up with Pete Thorn 2, and that cover amplified that. Very well said, for sure. Nice.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, the cover of the second album was a good friend of mine in France. I just hung out with for the day, and I was at my hotel, and she came out and took some photos of me. And one of the ones that she took, she's a super talented photographer that is actually Harry Styles' tour photographer now. But when I met her, she was literally working at like the equivalent of a Best Buy kind of store. She was young and just getting started, and then she went on to do photographs for Paris Match and stuff. She's photographed Tom Hanks and Ethan Hawke and like all these people now. She's like really like taken off as a photographer. I've been tour photographer for Lenny Kravitz and Harry and some other folks. So she's got an eye, like, she's the kind of person to take a picture of you. How the hell did you make me look like that? Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't look that good. And they just have an eye. So anyway, that's the photo of the second album. It's just in the it wasn't really planned or anything. It was just in the courtyard of this hotel I was staying in Paris. So,
nice. Oh, I love it. That's one we used for the thumbnail as well today as well too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
well, thanks,
I stole that from your website. I figured it was okay. If you can send me the bill later if you need to.
Sure, man.
All right, that's cool. Metalhead Hippies super chat as well too. Thank you so very much. He says love, peace, and hippie grease. Great show, Eric, and he says, hey Pete.
What's up, dude? A lot of these folks, Metalhead Hippie and Lauren and stuff, I see them in my, they came over from my chat as well, and they're pals and good folks in my life to have around. And it's weird, especially during these crazy COVID times. It's like it's nice to have a place where we all meet up on Sundays and stuff. And
yeah,
really and names. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's funny too. Like I talked. I don't know if I said during the show here, and I told you off here. I know for sure. But Sundays were never my thing. I've been doing it now for the past few years. But back when you remember the old EV8 shows, it was always a Friday night thing, and I still do that. But now it's called Rock Shop Live, and we talk about just about anything music. It's all over the place. I've even been talking to some actors lately. But when this Helix product came into my life, so I've been doing it now every Sunday at 3:00 in the afternoon on Canadian or Eastern time, and just love it to death. Like I think the reason why I do it all the time is for two reasons. One, it changed my life. As a guitar player, it made me a better player. And here's a funny story. You'd probably appreciate this. That I was talking to I did a Line 6 clinic up in Brantford, Ontario, I think it was. I think it's Brant. I always get flack for saying it wrong. But anyway, it was a real nice Sherwood Audio System, Sherwood Systems. And they just became a Line 6 dealer. So I went up and I took the power cabs up there. I took the Variacs. I took Stomp. I took the Helix floor. And they didn't even have the stuff out of the box yet. So I was showing them what it can do and all that kind of stuff. And where was I actually going with this? What was my train? I lost my train of thought completely on it. But anyways, yeah. So I told the owner of the store, I said, well, I think maybe I'm getting to be a better player because I'm putting effects on myself and I'm masking my flaws under distortion and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, how much are you playing? I said, I'm playing every day, like a lot. He goes, that's the reason why you're better. You're playing every day. And I'm like, stupidity that I didn't think of that, but sure enough. So long story short, it's made me want to give back to, and share the contagiousness that I found of it, because I'm not someone like you that can put a mic on a cab. I know you're just talking about that cool condenser earlier today that you got from Eddie Van Halen. I can't put a mic on a cab and get a good sound and record it. When inspiration hits me, I either have to record it or it's gone. With these products, I can do that. I have a preset that I go to all the time. I run into my DAW, and it's just so rewarding to be able to play with no frustration.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the shortest path from A to B is a great thing. Even with my traditional, the mics and everything, I have it set up so I get a tone like super quick. I can have a guitar sound going in 5 minutes and be like, to be honest, okay, so I've got an A/B box under my desk right here. The guitar plugs into that. One side goes to this side of my desk over here. That there's a Helix and an Axe Effects, and as well as a Geddy Lee bass pre.
Nice.
So my modeling side of the desk, right over there, and then the other side of the desk is where the B out of the A/B splits to, and it goes over to a splitter here on my desk where I can plug in pedals. So I got a couple cables with an in and an out, and then it continues on over there to an amp splitter. And then the amp splitter splits out to 8 different amplifiers.
Wow.
And 3 different cab options. Cab options, I say, because I've got 2 load boxes and 1 line out to my studio where there's a wired up cabinet.
Okay.
So I can, and there's also a Princeton in here, a Fender Princeton. So that's part of one of the 8 amps. So I can either play the long story short, the modelers, the little Princeton combo in the room, the amps through load boxes, or the amp through a mic'd up cabinet, and everything is wired in, and all I need to do is select what I want, and I can do that in about 3 minutes and have like whatever I want to use this amp through the cab, boom, or I want to get the Axe Effects, or I want to do a Helix, or I want to do the Geddy Lee bass pre, whatever it is, I can boom, 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 and just make it happen. So that was my idea with the setup in here, and also be able to have the ability to patch in a pedal instantly on the desk.
Yeah.
Like, okay, because I'm doing a pedal review or whatever. So I need to be able to plug in stuff right here instantly. I can go direct too, like instantly. Like if I want to use a plug-in for a guitar sound, for example, just go right into my, Apollo from UA here and do that. So with the shortest path from A to B, and if that is just the modeler, that's okay, because you're going to optimize the Helix for your, it's got so many options in it. The whole thing is, do I even need all this? Like, no. If all I had was one of these things, you could still make a lifetime worth of music, these days. And then I've had a great time using, like, to the case in point, the simplicity and stuff in the shortest path to A and B, the clinics tour I did last year with the HX effects. I combined that with my PT-15 amp, and I used it for all the effects. And the clinic really became just as much of a Helix focused thing as it did about the PT-15, because I was using it for fuzz and for overdrive and delay and reverb and pitch shift and all kinds of things in front of wah, I think even different things in front of my, and in the loop of my amplifier using a 4-cable method. And it's so simple, I would the Helix was the only thing I was actually carrying, that and my UA interface and my computer with me in my suitcase. I had it all like on the road with me, and the dealers would all provide the PT-15 amp. So I would carry the Helix and just add my snake, plug it in to the amp the dealer provided, and away I go. I could set up in 15 minutes and do a clinic. So
very, very
fast.
handy. Yeah. I was doing the same thing with I couldn't do it on the EVH Fitch 153s because it was more of it wasn't MIDI, but it was the DIN style channel switching jack. But on the lunch boxes, they had the 1/4 inch, and I was using HX Effects or Helix to do. It was only a 2-channel switching, but still, it's great. You just put it as an instant command on a snapshot, boom, and change the channel. Very, very handy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Works great to channel switch. It's a great little rig. The HX Effects with the PT-15 is a very compact, easy. And then I got my tube amp, and I got that for effects, so it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. A couple nice comments coming in the chat as well too, funneled through me. So this might be an early question. Something you might not even want to think about at this point, but you just got the other record out. Scott Duncan's asking, when's the next album coming out? Probably something in your back of your mind.
Oh, for sure. I think it's time. I'd love to get another one done. But to be honest, my feel is maybe an EP.
Nice.
Because I just feel like I don't even know if the full album makes sense. Like, I had an idea last year, and people do this now, but why not release a song once a month, and then at the end of 10 months maybe have 11 done and release another one as a bonus and put it together in packages as an album. So you've put out a single every month, and then you can put out an album every year that way, and just I think what people want more these days, and what seems to make more sense, is more consistent content.
I agree.
With something like Instagram and, these types of things, and even YouTube, it's like the consistency is what helps you build an audience and keep them there. And so being able to release a new snippet every month on Instagram or something, and also on YouTube, and then also just out as a single through, Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff, and then bundle it as an album at the end of the year. That would be, I think, a more efficient. Who cares about, you put out an album now and there's 10 or 11 tracks on it, and like 2 weeks later, I don't know if anybody's talking about it, or they still are, but it's like you've now bundled 10 things together, and I don't know if people focus on one of them or the single or like one, and then they don't even get to the, like, it's like, what if each one of those songs came out every month?
No, I like
Maybe
the idea.
A video accompanying it or something, It seems to be a better use of the time and resources.
And you've got singles on your website people can purchase as well too.
I do. Yeah, I do have a few. And like the To Live and Die in Nashville, and, a couple different ones that came out just as singles. Now, I think that's a great way to do it, and it seems to make sense these days. So I think that would be something that I could tackle easily from the mental, from the perspective of getting work done, thinking about getting 10 or 11 tunes done and all bundled with the album art and everything all at once and all the work, and then putting it all out, as opposed to one song. And then going, I could do one song today and tomorrow, and then it could be up at the end of next week, and then I'll do one more song. So I do have a single coming out. It's funny. I recently put out a video where I interviewed Bob Clearmountain. Went to his studio and talked to him about mixing and about his career, recording the Stones and mixing the Stones and Springsteen and everybody under the sun. It was a really fun interview. The second half of that interview will be coming out soon, and in that he mixed a song of mine while I was there, and he detailed a lot of his like plug-in flow and effects flow and how he does things and how he's, his approach to using effects and mixing and stuff like that. And so that's going to be part 2. I needed a song to take to him to mix that day, and I had a track I recorded in 2012 that is me singing, and it's not hard rock. It's kind of almost like Americana sounding or something like that, but I love the solo on it as far as the guitar aspect. I had my friend play Kurt Biscara. My friend Kurt Biscara play drums on it recently. Great drummer. And my friend Holly put down a bunch of background vocals. So I added that stuff recently and then took it to him to mix. And so it's this really beautiful mix that he did, that just because he's a legend, And I'm like, okay, I got to put this out. So I just had it mastered. So anyway, that'll be the next single I put out, but it's not what you expect. I'm singing.
That's cool.
It's going to be, and once again, I don't care. It's like, I just want to do what I want to do and just put out, without any fear of continuity or whatever. I just want to put out the work I put out. And so that'll be out probably within a month or two. We'll probably get it out pretty quick.
Good.
Yeah.
I have a good question coming up here from Brad Miller, and I'm just going to say this before I ask his question because I will forget it. When you talked about how things have changed, how people, want singles as opposed to records and things of that nature. Years ago when I worked in radio, I worked for a Canadian radio company, Blackburn Radio, and they had about 11 stations across Ontario, everything from country to rock to a top 40 and stuff like that. And we went away for a weekend for this kind of a summit, kind of a technical summit. And in Canada, Alan Cross?
No, Alan Cross.
Yeah,
no.
he's a big name, and he's kind of the Howard Stern-ish of Canada. He's really respected in the broadcast world. And in this summit, he came up with this term. It sounds really funny. But it's a term. It's called ego casting, and it might sound like you're talking about a person's ego, but what it is the way consumers consume content. And this is back, I'm going to say 8 years ago. So 8 years in technology is a long time. Where your FM radio was just kind of starting to change. People are listening to more streaming services like I don't know if Spotify was there then. I don't know, but the gate was changing as far as how we consume content. And what he meant by that is people. That's when podcasting was becoming big. We want our content. We want it on our terms when we want it. And that's why I think that the things of singles as opposed to waiting 2 years for a record, I get that now. Looking back, I really think he was onto something called ego casting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to. I mean, things have definitely changed. And why do we need to stick to the traditional 10 songs as an album format when nobody even really listens like that anymore? I mean, I see the way that younger people listen to things these days. They skip around like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Check out this song. Check out this song. Check out this song. And they're like skipping. You barely get to the chorus many times. Can I just hear the whole song?
Yeah.
Let alone the whole album, because we used to put. It's really equivalent to the way we used to talk on the phone, which was a phone with a rotary dial. You had to make a commitment just to dial the damn thing.
Try winning a prize on the radio.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And it had a cable that connected you to something that you were tethered to. So you were committed to making a phone call. You weren't multitasking and doing, your taxes or talking to somebody else while you're on the phone and, cleaning the house while it's on speakerphone. No, you were committed to that phone call and tethered to it. Well, that's the way we used to listen to music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was an LP. There was a side. You put the thing down. It could only be so long, and then you'd have to flip it, or otherwise it'd sit there and skip at the end.
Yeah.
It was a commitment. It wasn't portable. I mean, I guess there was portable record players, but that was just kind of a joke. Everybody had a home hi-fi system, and that was how you listened. You really committed to listening to the whole thing. Nowadays it's like all about the convenience factor and stuff. So you can rail against it. And there's also, there's the vinyl contingent and stuff that's come back a little bit, where it's like, and I love that.
Me too.
It's like a bit of, just like tube guitar amps. It's like, big tube heads and stuff. It'll never go away completely, I don't think.
No.
There'll always be people that want that. But a lot of it has become about convenience. And you see this in the guitar, this is part of using the, helixes and things for playing live and being easier to travel and stuff like that. It's comparable many times to people, having their whole music collection not even on the thing anymore, but streaming.
Yeah.
Through it's this all one and the same to me. And so you can either fight it or go, well, there's a certain contingent that are going to want to do it this way, and it's going to probably be the majority. And how can I make that work for what we're doing? And if we can just get out of the thinking that it always is going to be a certain way, because it's never always. I use the example this week of, we've only been recording music for like 100 years anyway, or something, maybe a little more, a little less, but it's recorded music. It's not been going on that long. I think, I don't remember the first time that they used to make phonograph records, but I think it was the late 1800s or something. I can't remember, but I have one of them anyway, because I used to have a girlfriend that her father used to collect home stereo and hi-fi stuff and old radios and things from when they started making these things. And so he gave me an early recording LP kind of, but it's not an LP. What it is it's like a canister that held the record, and the record is a cylinder.
Yes.
Have you seen these?
Yes, I have on YouTube, and there's some really valuable ones.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
It's on my shelf. I should bring it sometime and show it. But it's like it's a canister, and you put it looks like a circle, or like a can of soup. It's the size of that. And you take the record out, and it's got grooves on it. And you used to put that down, and that would spin, and then the needle would, I guess, it would, I don't know. That's like one of the first early. So that's amazing. So that used to be how we used to do it. And I heard when they used to make the first recordings on that, they used to be able to print right to vinyl or whatever they used. Maybe it was those, but that they didn't know how to replicate them. So they'd figured out how to do recording, but they didn't know how to replicate the recording. So they'd have the band play the song like 50 times.
Oh, geez.
And they would take 50 of these things and just sell them. Right. Wow. So every recording was an original performance.
Wow. I did not know that.
Then they learned how to replicate.
Okay.
And now it was completely different. Right. So my point being, music used to be traveling minstrels or whatever. I mean, we didn't even have the ability to record. Now we could record, and you had to play the song 50 times, and you can make 50 recordings and then sell them, I guess. And then now they figured out how to copy them, and it was 78s, and then it went to and it's changed all the way through. So it's going to keep changing. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
And if we can get our heads out of it, you always want to be looking, if your music career is what you want to do and stuff, or solo, you want to be looking down the road to see what's next and how you can be ahead of that curve and game it. Because if you get stuck in, I was better, in my day, and we just need to go back to, it's like, when in the hell have we ever done that? When the hell have we ever gone back?
No. We can reminisce, but we don't have to go back.
Yeah. And we can celebrate it and still have a turntable. I want to get a new turntable and have a great hi-fi at home because it's cool. And there's a certain, it's awesome. But it's like, it's impossible to argue with the convenience of something like this and being able to stream any song right now if I want to hear I'm the One or whatever.
Yep.
And pull it and play it. I mean, okay, there's positives, right?
I agree. So Brad Miller's question, he asked a couple times, he's saying he wants to know if Pete has any plans to do any more collaborations with Britney.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, she's got a studio. It's very close, and it's like, yeah, she's getting better and better. So Britt put out a video recently. It wasn't on her channel. It was a guy named Steven's Drum Channel. You can go check it out, where he hired a bunch of drummers off. He's a famous dude, the drummer on YouTube that has a drum channel, and he hired all these drummers that have accounts on Fiverr to play on his song. So he hired 10 different drummers, I think, from rates anywhere from $15 to a couple $100 to play on his track.
Okay.
So Britt's on Fiverr. She's a drummer, and she was the $200 drummer, you know, and you know, rightly so. Like she's charging what she thinks she needs to make and what it's worth to, you know, because a lot of these guys are charging $15 or $20 and things to play on your songs. Like, dude, you are undercutting the entire way. Yeah. First of all, the whole system is outside of the union, which is technically not, you know, but like, I guess that's the world we live in now. So it's like, but the second, there's always that race to the bottom, you know, and it's like, man, charge what you're worth. Like, don't, you know, it's worth more. That's the kind of wage you could make, you know, flipping burgers or something like that. You're playing drums. You put your time into playing the drums, buying the mics, getting the interface and stuff. It's fair.
It is fair.
You know, so she plays in the video, and the video's got 600,000 or 700,000 views now or something like that.
Wow.
And she's gotten a whole ton of work because he picked her as being the best, you know, so she cost the most, and she also did the best track, you know, for him. So she's gotten a ton of work out of it. And it couldn't have come at a better time, because in the COVID thing, you know, day jobs and stuff like that have been really tough for her. So it's like, well, this was meant to be, you know, a little YouTube collaboration, and you got a whole bunch of new subscribers in a month, and people that are hiring her off Fiverr and stuff to play on their tracks. So it's cool.
That's very good. And YouTube right now is the place to be, obviously, with everyone being cooped up at home. I mean, we're lucky to have YouTube. A good question from Stephen Douglas says, ever think about a small club tour when we get back to a normal type of thing, or would it be too expensive? Would you want to do some small clubs if maybe put together a project and do clubs again? I know you grew up, in Canada and in the United States, and not doing clubs before you got some of the bigger gigs. Is it something you'd like to embrace again?
If it was a way I could do it without getting in the car and starving and driving around and doing because I just sort of don't see the point. If there's a way that I could do it where it made sense, like, okay, with the SIR clinics, for example, that really made sense. It was like, the clinics are sponsored by SIR and by the dealers. I would go there, and some of them sold tickets, other ones were free. It just made sense. And then I would sell some CDs and merch and stuff like that. And the whole thing was really beautiful. It ended up being a great thing. I would want to do something along those lines, where it's like, I can't see myself at my age and stuff, and with other work that I got going and stuff, getting in the van and, you know, struggling for, you know, but I will struggle to some degree, as long as there's some help, you know. So, or if it was a tour with a few other, there was a great idea that a friend of mine had. He was a guitar player named Soren Andersen over in, he's in Denmark. He's got a great studio in Copenhagen, and he knows promoters and bookers and stuff like that over there. And he knows musicians, and he's a great guitar. He plays with Glenn Hughes. So, you know, legendary singer. So he's a really good guitar player. And we had this idea a while ago. It was like, why don't we do a tour together where maybe we use the same band? Like, if I was to come over there, and he knows that he's got all these great connections with club bookers and stuff, we could use the same band and basically like play like one big set where we play each other's tunes. Because I need another guitar player in my songs, and his music's not unlike mine. If you haven't heard him, you should check it out. Soren Andersen is his name. And I thought this would be great. We can just do a joint show where we both you know, support each other and stuff, and use the same musicians and stuff. That made sense to me. It was like, okay, now we got this thing where he's got a following in Europe. He's got connections, you know, and then maybe I could do the same thing over here. Like, he could come over and we could do a run in California, West Coast run or something like that. And, you know, up to Oregon or Washington or something, do a bunch of gigs. That'd be fun, you know, and then a combined kind of some way that it makes sense in collaboration with maybe with our guitar companies or something to help, you know,
to make it happen. I have a dog trying to.
Yeah.
I have a dog trying to give me some attention here. She's trying to. I think she wants to go out.
There you go.
We have two dogs. This is Treble, and we have one named Halen as well. Hence where the name comes from. At one time, we actually had a bird named Van, so we had Van and Halen. So very interesting. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, it's got to make sense. That's why I quit. Like, I was doing the original circuit for 12 years in a band. And, you know, come close, we did some showcases for Roadrunner Records and stuff like that. Went very, very well. And they said, well, if you replace this person in the band, you know, like singer, we can work on. And I was one of those guys at the time. Was like, well, it's us, it's all of us or nothing, right? And I don't really regret that decision now, because it might have changed my life in ways I wasn't prepared for. But I had one of those epiphanies one day where, you know, like your life flashes before your eyes, and it was like breaking down on the side of the road in the wintertime on 401, you know, making enough money at one gig for all of us together to get a sandwich at Tim Hortons, you know, or not worse, you know, getting robbed, you know, or blah, 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 staying in some of these hotels above bars that, you know, you turn the lights out at night and it looks like constellations with black lights. All that went through my mind. I was like, hell with this, man, I'm done. So I totally get it when it has to be right for you. And a lot of us have had to suffer to do what we love to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of years like that too, you know, where it was like my early years of touring. Because people think of me as like YouTube guy, or like where they know I played with these bigger artists. But before all that stuff, like it was like 10 years, like 90s. I want to say, well, okay, like let's go 97 to about 2000, and well, certainly the years of 97 through 2001 were like a lot of vans and a lot of, you know, traveling around, like multiple trips around the US and Canada, some to Europe and stuff in vans with a trailer and no money, and a lot of that stuff going on. And then a little bit more, it got better and better from 2001 to about 2006. So there was about a 10-year period where it was, I did that. A lot of, and you know, keep in mind on the road, no matter what, you're on the road, which means you're not home. You're pretty much, and if you're touring as a sideman, it's like you're out there for somebody else, you know, sort of in service of them, which is great, but you are in service of them. It's not furthering your own. So I spent a lot of my life doing this stuff. So the idea of going out and doing it, it's like, maybe you just get soft after a number of years, or maybe you're just like, you know what, I just don't think I want to exactly, like it was my early 30s when I really hit the point where I was like, you know, I think after this band tour, this is the last band tour. I just don't, it's just, you know, 25 to 32 or 33. It's like, I just kind of, and luckily it worked out, and it was mostly buses after that, but my touring only increased, but it, you know, it got better and better and better.
Yeah.
You know? If it had stayed the same, I don't think I could do it anymore. I mean, I literally remember, you know, it's like stuff where you're I remember driving with, you know, a band I was in, that'll go unnamed, with the drummer driving. I was in the back seat with the keyboard player. We were on the New Jersey Turnpike at 1 a.m. trying to get to New York City or whatever. It's raining. The drummer's been smoking pot the whole time, and he's going 85 miles an hour because he wants to get to the hotel, and it's pouring rain, and you're pulling a trailer. And I remember looking at the keyboard player and going, if I survive, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore like this. And he was like, me either. We were the two hired guys in the band, the two sidemen, and here we are, you know, making our, you know, $900 a week or whatever we were getting, or something like that at the time, which doesn't go very far.
No.
And, you know, and just going this is really dangerous. Like, you hear about this stuff, like the van and the trailer and the whole thing jackknifes or whatever, and everybody dies. And that's happened to a lot of, you know, people into like bands and stuff on tour. So it's just like, I don't think I can, I'm just not going to keep doing this like this. So on this level, you know, that's what happened. So, you know, pulling up to the Canadian border, and you find out, you know, when you get there, that the tour manager's got a heroin bust from like the late 70s or something.
Yeah, great.
And he's not getting into Canada. And all of a sudden, he was your driver and tour manager. Now we got to do a cross-country tour. We just lost our front-of-house guy and tour manager because they won't let him into the country. And you get to Montreal, and you're trying to find a sound guy to take you the rest of the way across the country, and you're driving now.
Yeah, good.
I didn't sign up to drive. I'm a guitar player.
That's right. And then, it's like some people can't drive for a long time; they fall asleep. Before we've got about 20 minutes before we jump into we wrap up the program. We'll talk some Helix here in just a second as well too. But did you ever have that problem where like, you know, let's say you're going to a city and you think, okay, it's a great venue, good production. You've heard about it before, a good place to play, and you think it's going to be the best show in the world, and it sucks. And then you go to a small town Ontario or a small town USA, and you're thinking, oh man, this is going to be absolutely horrible. And it turns out to be one of the best gigs you ever played. Did you have some of those gigs in your life?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, you never know. You know, like, you could have a great room, but it's noisy as hell. Like, there's a ton of, you know, electromagnetic interference in there. Like, some stages are just like brutal, and you plug in and it's generally when you're going to film the DVD for the tour.
Yeah, exactly. More
than once. The only time I ever had a problem with a PT100 on tour was a certain venue in Japan where we were filming, and that amp, I won't get into the long story, but anyway, we've put preamp tube shields on the 15, and that was part of it. It was the only place that I ever ran into something where it was like interference getting into the amplifier. You know what I mean? And it was because Japan is like crazy radio and stuff like that going on, and all kinds of signals and stuff. And I remember in Lyon, France, filming a DVD, and in my rig, just a little like, and I could not get rid of it. My rig's tight, like isolation transformers where it needs to be and everything's cool. And it was just something about that venue and the power. So it happens even on that. That was an arena show, on a very, very high level. And then you can go to a place like, I'll use the example of where you guys are, Casino Rama in Ontario, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that place, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's got the most dialed in. They have backline. They're like a rental company. I mean, they have like every amp under the sun. They've got guitar tech stations that are like unbelievable backstage. I mean, it is whoever set up the live thing at Casino Rama is like, kind of like middle of Ontario, Northern Ontario, or whatever, is just a player. They have to be. Because they dialed it in so that any artist world class could come in there and have everything they basically need to play a show. Just bring your pedal board and you'll probably be cool, So
a treat to play there.
Yeah,
a treat to play there. Well, let's talk about, you're one of the first, I'm not sure if the very first, but at least certainly one of the very first to demo Helix on your YouTube channel. When did you discover it, and what were your initial findings? Because it really struck people hit them, drastically when they first heard this thing. When you got your hands on it, what did you think of it?
Well, I was really impressed with it because mainly the one thing that I took away from it right away was that they'd made it to integrate with your gear. So because I like using amps sometimes, they'd had the effects loops for pedals, and you could use it easily for a cable method. And that meant a lot to me because it was like, hey, they haven't tried to tell you need to sell your whole rig and go down this path. It was more like, you can use this in, like, the thing that I realized right away about the Helix was that I could make a preset in the Helix, let's say, a complete preset with an amp and a cab model and all that stuff, and effects pre and post and all that good stuff. And then I could take that same preset and copy it and build a 4-cable preset and integrate my amp.
Yeah.
So now I've got the option of taking the Helix only to a session or a gig, or now I've got the option of bringing my full rig with the Helix as the controller. It'll channel switch my amp, and I can just simply insert an effect block and insert my amp's preamp as the, you know what I mean, and use a 4-cable. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, I was like, what's amazing about this is one of the first devices where your workflow doesn't change. You can use this thing with, a comparable amp model and IR or whatever in it, or just insert your own amp into that same preset, and the thing on the floor that you're looking at stays the same. All your pedal pushes, your presets, the volume pedal or the wah, whatever your expression, whatever you're using it for. It's not like you got a different rig now for your modeling rig and for your amp. You've got this one thing. And I thought that's brilliant, because now I can take it on a fly date, and use it like that, or I can take it when I got my full rig. And I have used it live with, there's a video on YouTube of me playing a bunch of Chris Cornell songs, not with Chris, but it's in 2016 with a friend of mine named Dave singing. And it's if you look up the Lucky Strike, Pete Thorn, Chris Cornell.
I saw that. Actually, I did see that. And you're using Helix there?
I'm using the Helix with the PT100.
Okay, so right on.
4-cable method. So you can hear me use it on songs like Blow Up the Outside World with all the tremolo and stuff like that. All the effects. I don't know if we did Black Hole Sun, but we did Say Hello to Heaven, I think, and I'm using it for all the rotary on that. So that's all the Helix. And I used it. That was one of the first times I ever tried to use it 4-cable method with my amp and use it for all the switching and effects and stuff like that. And it worked great. We met it on Like a Stone, I think. And I used it for the whammy.
Okay.
I think I screwed up hitting the whammy preset. And so there's a couple of where it didn't come in, and I got it on, and then it worked. But that's my own fault. My feet. Yeah. But anyways, it worked just terrific. And then that led me to realize, okay, this is a totally viable option. Then when they came out with the HX effects, it's like, well, when I go 4-cable, this will be great. I can use this. And sure enough, that's why I did the clinic tour with it and stuff. So,
fantastic.
But that was my first impression, was how they'd made it to integrate with other things. And that was really cool. And then the computer editor's always been good and elegant. And I started to realize this is a device that's not quite as complicated as some of the other ones out here on the market. It's relatively easy to program and get around. There's not as much of a learning curve. And it's very ergonomic. So I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things. Yeah.
Well, here's something I think I'm almost guaranteed you'll agree with me on this. So let's say you're traveling in a tour bus. Obviously, you've got electricity in the tour bus. You can have your Helix at the back and you plug it in. Or you're working with a bunch of guitar pedal companies and someone gives you a box of pedals. And so they say to you, okay, or your tour manager says, Pete, okay, when we get to the gig, I want your rig to be ready. Let's go. So you've got 12 different pedals in your pedal. Well, let's cut it down. Let's say 10 pedals in the pedal board. I want you to assemble this in the order you're going to be when you get to the gig we're going to play. Same thing with Helix. You could plug Helix in, whether you're going to use HX Edit or on the device itself, and just paint the blocks that you want, amp, cab, effect, blah, 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 blah. on Helix and know when you get to the gig that you could just plug in that Helix and go, and with minor adjustments. Same thing as if you were to build a pedal board in the bus.
Dude, I had to do this.
Did you?
Actually. So recently in Japan, I sat in with the artist that I play with over there sometimes on tour. His name is Toshi Noguchi. And I showed up as the promoter wanted to bring, because he did a tour recently with just a small stripped down band, and I wasn't a part of that tour, but I was going to be in Japan doing clinics. And so the promoter's like, oh my God, you're going to be here. We got to get you to play. Like, you got to come out and play. And I was like, is that a good idea? Like, just surprising him. And I was like, all right, I'll roll with it. So sure enough, I showed up, and the Helix had served as my backup there. So we have a couple of Helixes over in Japan. And actually Ichiro, the other guitar player, uses one as his effect unit on his pedal board now with amps like we're talking about. But anyway, so they had the second Helix there. Well, I got to it, and they'd had it in the studio, and all my presets had got blown out and stuff. Sure. So I was literally backstage just making, okay, no problem, this is no big deal, making my stock floor kind of presets, And I did it backstage in about 10 minutes, where I just, this amp, this cab, I know the settings, I know put a delay, put a whatever, great, made a cleaner one, made a lead, done. And took it upstairs and plugged it into PA. So the whole thing was about a half an hour getting ready. And then what happened was he shows up at sound checks, and they hid me backstage. And he started doing the sound check and listening to the band and stuff. And he likes the band to just do blues jams in E to start the whole sound check. And then he gets into playing his songs. So they're jamming in E. And then they told the promoter was just like, just start playing, just start soloing and stuff. Like, and just like, he's going to be like, why is there another guitar right here? And that's what happened. And I walked out on stage and just looked at him. And it's crazy because I'm in Japan. He's like looking at me like he didn't know I was going to be there.
Right.
He's like,
that's crazy.
What the hell are you doing here? And then it was really fun. I got to play on about 3 tunes that night or something, just sat in. But that's exactly what happened. Backstage, I built the presets from scratch without even being able to hear them. Then I ran upstairs, plugged in at sound check, dialed in the sounds just a little bit for levels and stuff, and it was fine.
I love it. It's totally true. I did a preset the other day. I made it for it's a free one. I put up for download for Helix, HX Stomp, and Pod Go. It was Message in a Bottle by the Police. Where Andy Summers obviously a great guitar tone, and he's changed some things up a few times. And I'm not going to lie to you, I built the preset without a guitar in my hands. I changed one parameter on the harmonic flanger. That's all I changed.
Yeah.
Using a flanger, a big compression, a little bit of he uses a clon up in the front, and just a few different things. And I built it in 5 minutes, and I was so inspired to do it. So you can kind of paint by number as long as you have.
You know it so well now. Like, so you can pull up the amp and you know where to set, just like a real amp. You know where to set the knobs, and you know what IR you like. So now you've got your core tone, and you probably set it exactly like you would set it going into a rehearsal or whatever. It's like, when you used to have a Fender Basement or something, you know where to put the knobs.
Yeah.
So once you learn the thing, it's pretty easy. And then you just throw the effects on there and put them about where you think they're supposed to be. And then it's 30 seconds of tweaking beyond that. That's just a learning curve,
Yeah.
But that's a great thing about it, is the kind of paint. Like you say, you can build a pedal board, but there ain't no plugging in pedals and everything. It's just dropping the box.
That's right.
It's cool.
And for people like yourself that like to do gear demos, you do them all the time. Let's say, it's just an easy way for you today. You've got your Helix hooked up. If you want to show what a certain modulation pedal sounds like, Helix has a great routing system where you can use it as a looper. I mean, not as a looper as in playing, but I mean as a loop system to turn on a loop and get that pedal coming in. And even if you're using a wah pedal or distortion pedal, people might think, Eric, you wouldn't put a wah pedal in a loop. Well, you're not putting it in a loop. You're just putting it in a signal path, and you can turn it on and off through Helix, which is great.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's very, very, very simple, easy to use device once you get into the flow and stuff like that.
And I think the biggest thing too, why it is so easy to use, is the fact, like, of all the units that are out there. I mean, there's so many good ones. You've done demos on many of them. You own many of them, like Headrush and Kemper. There's just so many things. Boss units out there, and I know you're not ever intimidated by parameters and menus and digging through pages of manuals and stuff like that. But,
no, I am.
Are you? Okay. Well, but Helix isn't like that. It's such an inviting user interface.
That's right. No, I always say that when people are like, which one's better? I'm like, dude, you're asking me, should I get the Lexus or the Infinity or the BMW or the Mercedes? You're talking about 3 sides of the, everything's great now. They've all learned from one another, and they've all got their little strengths and things that might sway you one way or the other. The Kemper, I always tell people, it's like, this is the device for I talked about it this morning on my show. This is the device for if you want to model, profile your own amp. So guys in the studio that have got a bunch of heads and they want to kind of catalog them all. It's a great device for that. The Axe Effects is very, very, very deep.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's a great sounding device, but it's very, very, very deep. And if you want to, and they've actually made some strides making it, easier and stuff like that to use. But I always found it deep, not in a bad way. It's just, it'll do anything. It's just got, it's crazy deep and stuff like that. It does a great job at what it does. The Helix is like this terrific, like, I don't know. They've struck a nice. It's like I say. I know when they've designed it, they put a lot of time. Like I think Matt from Line 6 told me they had like 5 different departments, like working on the look and the ergonomics and the this and the that. They had a lot of thought put into how easy the thing was going to be to use. Like the simple way that, for instance, with the scribble strips and all that, pulling things down on it. They put a lot of thought into that stuff. Like how can we make this easy and elegant? And it wins out in that department for me. It's the easiest to use. Viewing, the great big screen where you could see everything and the blocks and the knobs in the bottom. It was just like, this one is going to be, if you want to spend probably more time playing, and, it was the winner for me. So it's like, what's important to you? And that's why you would pick the BMW, the Mercedes, the Lexus, let's look at the pros and the cons.
Yeah. And
there's not even that many cons with any of these devices. It's just like, they're all great. They've all learned. We all benefit. Mm-hmm. It's like Pro Tools, Logic. Which one should I get? They're all great, man. Just like there's going to be little things about each one. They've all learned from one another, and we benefit as the consumer.
I agree on that 100%. In the last 10 minutes that we have here, I haven't seen you do anything with this yet. Have you tried Pod Go yet?
No, but I have it right here.
Good.
I have to. So when you said I don't get intimidated by learning curves, I do. And I know it's not going to be steep with this one. I'm going to be fine.
Yep.
But I know when I get into it that it's going to be a few days. So I'm going to make a video for it. And it's going to be similar to what I always do, which is write a tune and just try to utilize it as best I can. And then maybe have 7 or 8 presets or something like that. So I'm excited to do it. It's just setting aside the time and going, okay, these are going to be the 3 days that I devote to doing this, and that's coming up like within the next week and a half here. I got to do that.
Good.
This. And I'm excited to do it. How do you feel about it? Tell me.
I'm going to tell you 2 things. I'm going to tell you 2 things you're going to find about it right away. Number one, it sounds exactly 100%. It sounds exactly like Helix. Now, Eric Klein was on the show about 2 weeks back, and he gave us the technical terms between the differences, like when the chips and the processing and blah, blah, blah. There's numbers that will tell you that there's differences, but your ears, you even yourself are not going to hear the difference between a preset you'll build on Helix and that you build on here. You can't share the presets, but if you're to copy and kind of put all your settings into Pod Go, there's no difference in sound. And one of the things I love to death, which is just a visual, is the display on it. I mean, for someone like myself who vision is not the best, it's a very, very vibrant screen. You're going to love it to death.
Let's plug it in because I haven't, and you can continue to ask me things, but I haven't had a chance to power it up yet, so I want to see that.
You're absolutely gonna love it. It's a brilliant piece. It's different blocks limitations. Now you probably know about this already. It's going to come with blocks that you can't remove. You're going to have a volume pedal, a wah pedal, an EQ, an amplifier, an effects loop, and either a speaker cabinet or an IR. But then you've got about 4 other additional effects you can add anywhere in the chain. And it's great. It's absolutely great. Another thing I thought at first too was the expression pedal. Before I actually physically had one in my hands, I thought it was just a plastic piece. It's all metal, robust. It's a great unit.
Yeah, it is. The expression pedal looks tough.
You're gonna be surprised when you turn it on. You're gonna see the little kidney bean pod logo.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes. Yeah. Cool.
And there's one firmware update already too, just a slight update. So make sure you do that before your video as well, or maybe after.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is cool. So it's got interesting. I see the blocks at the top, and then you can see which 4 of the 4 presets that you're on. Mm-hmm. And then inside the preset, inside the preset, you hit the mode button, and then you get a similar sort of colored.
Yep.
Right.
That's it. Yeah.
Display. Very simple. So already, to be honest, I don't really think there will be that steep of a learning curve. So you can load IRs, right?
You can, and which I know you love. Yep. We bring them in, no problem as well.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Well, this is probably going to be really straightforward.
I think you'll get it. And the outputs are 1/4-inch tip ring sleeves, so they are balanced as well too. So you can go TRS to XLR if you want.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing you're missing, you don't get you don't have a Variax input, but it's not meant to be a Helix, right?
Right. And is it? Can you as far as the 4 cable thing?
Oh yeah, still do 4 cable. Yep.
No problem.
Yeah, right? No problem at all. I know you run yours all the time like that. So yeah, no problem with that whatsoever. I think you're going to love it. And the last moment before we wrap up, I know you did some demos with Line 6 with Power Cab, and I know you're a traditional, you like your speakers, a certain, speakers you like 25 watts and all this cool stuff. But did you have some good enjoyment with the Power Cabs when you had some time with them?
Yeah, I thought it was a good device. I haven't used it very much beyond what I did at line 6 that day, to be honest. But it seemed to me like they made a cool, device that could be an asset for a number of different reasons. Because to me, a good powered cab is usable in many, you can do wet dry with it. You obviously use it with a modeler. There's all kinds of things you can do. And plus it's full range. So, you could even use it with acoustic guitars and stuff like that. So that's a good product to me to have out there.
Yeah, it's cool. I certainly love them. And this is something I know you'd appreciate. You talk about wet, dry, wet with a lot of players. You've used it before and people that we admire, Eddie Van Halen and Steve Lukather and all those people. What I'm doing back there with Helix Rack, that's my main unit. And I have a control underneath my desk right here so I can control it. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing any editing, I have to edit in HX Edit because we're about 18 feet back to my rig back there. But I run one preset dual XLR out to the 212 power cab in the middle. And then I run L6 link out to the one on the left, which is a 112. L6 link out of that one to the one on the right. I put a parallel path and I put an expression pedal in it so I can actually... So what I'd run is like traditional Eddie Van Halen rig, wah, phase, flange, maybe some chorus, whatever else, maybe a distortion. That's going to go to the center amp. And then I got my nice spatial effects like reverbs and delays. And literally I can roll them in with the expression pedal, how much what I want. Dry is always going to be there. So once I rock that in, it's like this warm hug of tone just comes around and just it's so cool, man.
Yeah, it's addictive, right? Wet dry is, yeah. It is really. We talked on my show a lot about wet dry today, actually, in stereo rigs and mono rigs and when to use them and stuff. But there is nothing like the sound of when you hear that. It becomes like, oh God, I have to use this all the time, which might not necessarily be the right thing for every band.
No, and you did make some good points, what I did catch as well too, because a lot of times, it doesn't translate well in a band mix. Like here's a good example I mentioned to you about Jeff Schroeder. He's been on the show a few times. He's been over on my Rock Shop Live once or twice. He's been on the Helix Hour about 3 times since we've done it. And of course, with those guys in Pumpkins, there's 3 guitar players playing and 3 very important guitar players. You got James, Billy Corgan himself, and then Jeff, and they're running mono. And so you just could not have 3 guys playing stereo. And their sound is just insane. And Jeff's using all Helix with traditional amplifiers. Billy's he's actually using HX effects with an extension with the other pedals. And I forget what James is using. He might be using Fractal, I forget. But overall, their sound is just, how good they sound.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, that's cool. I like James. I should say Jeff. I don't know James. I've never met James, but Jeff is, he's a friend of mine. And he's a great guy. Cool.
I love him.
I worked with Billy in the early we made a record together, actually, in the early 2000s.
I didn't know that.
We did a album together where we were the 2 guitar players. So it's been about a month or month and a half in the studio with that guy.
Wow, that's fantastic. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll send you a text you after later on. I'm going to let you get a break. You've been talking all day, but I'll send you a link and you can check it out whenever you want. It was to the show where Jeff was on a while back, and he had 2 custom, Yamaha built him 2 custom shop Pacificas just for him. Well, I think they're building a couple more. And oh my God, you want to talk about beautiful guitars? Because Jeff, he's a lot like you. He's an 80s super shredder, right? And he had he loves the Pacificas. He had a real nice kind of this neon pink orange Ibanez RG like 650, 750, something like that. He picked up over to Anderton's in the UK when he was touring over there with Pumpkins. He was touring with Night Dreamer over there. He went in there and picked up this guitar. He liked that one so much. So he had Pat at the Custom Shop build him a real nice white Pacifica. And actually it was partly modeled after my Pacifica. I've got a 921 here. So they had me take forensic photos of this thing to send to the Custom Shop. And they built that one and this really cool one. Wait till you see it, man. It's just to die for. Floyd Rose, original Floyd Rose. One's got the Sustainiac or the Sustainer pickup in it. It's just crazy stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I gotta check it out.
Well, listen, we're right on the hour here. I want to let you go because you've had a long day. I really appreciate your time and sending out your awesome people over here as well, too. It's been good to catch up with you as well, too. And I wish you the best for sure.
We didn't do our thing where we talked about the preset, because I was going to make a preset for you when I get a sec here, a Helix preset. So maybe people can send you a message or something. But I know it's been a tradition on the show where they make a preset for you, so we were going to take a little poll what people would want to see.
Okay.
But I was just going to come up with a cool Helix preset. And
you know what? I think right now Podgo is becoming really popular because everyone's getting it in their hands. But I think if we're a general consensus, I think probably people would gravitate towards a Helix preset.
Sure.
You know, and then down the road we can always modify that one to fit a Stomp or something of that nature. We'll scale it down. But whenever you get the time, pop one off to me by email, and then I'll link it in this video in the description. I'll put it in the Dropbox, and they can download it. So I appreciate that offer as well too.
Yeah, man, you bet.
Awesome.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I'll say goodbye to you off the air. Everyone, thank you so very much. Next time, not same time next week. We're back to our regular slot, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Next Sunday, Jen Majura is making her return from Evanescence, coming back. She's always a ball of energy. I mean, that girl has got so much energy. Like, I'm just like, I'm wound up like a top. And she winds me up even more in a good way. She's just so awesome. So we're looking forward to having her back. And we've also got some other great guests coming up the week after as well, too. So listen, have a great week, a remainder of your Sunday evening here. And be safe out there. And we'll talk to you next time. Until then, cheers.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
Thank you for watching the Helix Hour. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. An extra special thank you to the staff at Line 6 for their continued support. If you've not yet subscribed, please do so right now and feel free to share our content with your friends. See you next time on the Helix Hour.